I was just going to have a look at Fasciation today, and this conifer, as you can see, it has distorted growth. And this can be caused by a variety of things. It can be caused by a hormonal condition, it can be caused by virus or some kind of bacterial infection. It can be a random genetic mutation, and that is what the case is with this. This will actually keep replicating itself. You can do cuttings and it will come true to this arrangement of foliage. It's actually called, well, it's Japanese cedar, it's Cryptomeria. But if I just show you what an ordinary Cryptomeria japonica looks like, that's what the foliage would be like. It's quite straightforward. But with Fasciation, you have a range, there's two different types of foliage. You have what you might call the more straightforward one. It's not quite like this, but it's similar. And then you have these beautiful sort of furry, they're sometimes called coxcombs. I hope that's the right word. So you get ordinary Cryptomeria, Cryptomeria japonica elegans, aurea, and then you get this one. If you were doing cuttings of this and you wanted to guarantee that you would get that same kind of effect, you really do it exactly the same way you do the other cryptos. You just keep going from the softer tissue until you can feel a distinct change, and it will start to get firm. And where at that point where it gets firm, that is where you take the cutting from. So you could, on this piece, you can get several pieces. It does seem to help if you want to make sure you get this interesting foliage. It does seem to help if you have a mixture of foliage on the cutting material. We've got a couple of other examples of Fasciation. These are all to do with foliage. It also happens to flowers, obviously. It's usually to do with a distortion of some kind in the meristem tissue, particularly the apical meristem, so that you might get a flower at the top of a shoot that would get fasciated. This is actually a salix. Admittedly, it's not a brilliant example, but this is a normal kind of shoot on that plant, and then this is the fasciated one, where all the growth is actually fused together and it's become very thin but very flat. This is very popular with florists because they like the fact that it curls, and you actually do get the most amazing shapes, very twisted and very elegant. And this is like the Cryptomeria, that's a naturally occurring thing. Another example of Fasciation is where you see, this is a well-known hardy fern that you see everywhere in gardens and nurseries, and it has a sort of fasciated effect at the ends of the, I can't pronounce it, pini, is it? Pini, yeah. But all the way through, and that is what it's actually sold for. This is a really hardy fern. It's Dryopteris aphaenus cristata, the king. The other, I mentioned about fasciation also happening with flowers. That can be, it's quite often seen in herbaceous plants, things like delphiniums, perhaps euphorbias, and what you will see there is the flower stem might then go like that and twist, and it doesn't look particularly good. So people tend to cut it out, but you don't need to worry because it won't necessarily come back next year. It's just a random thing. When it's like that and it's a random event, it can often be caused by something as simple as a pest eating the growing point, something like an aphid. There's one other thing to do. Oh yeah, years ago I used to work in a greenhouse that sold Ostromerias as cut flowers, and so the entire greenhouse was full of Ostromerias about that height, and the flower would be like that. And every now and again, perhaps 5 or 6 in a row, the length of this glass house, you would get a fasciation happen, and you would have quite a tall stem, and then the flower at the top, instead of being rounded, would be completely flat. So about the size of 2 hands, like a fan. So that if you were to turn it sideways, it would just be, I suppose, about the thickness of my little finger. And they were very popular because they were actually sold to florists at a premium price. And it was a really good, almost like a bonus